Okay, so this morning I was reading the Bible, believe it or not. I actually do that every morning, I think. Almost every morning. Sometimes I do it evenings. But the point is that that's not the point. And I was reading Proverbs this morning. I can't remember. I read 16, 17, and 18. And in one of those Proverbs, for some reason, I'm thinking 18. But I might be completely off my rocker if I say that. But anyway, the point is, one of the verses said this. It was like, a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. And it got me to thinking, a lot of people would probably agree with that. And there's some people that probably wouldn't agree with that because, once they're dating, when people are dating, they make this mistake of, they bring the best out of each other, which is a good thing, but they make the mistake of falling in love with the best of that person and not falling in love with the actual whole person. Do you know what I'm trying to say here? It's like, if I have a girlfriend and all her good things are being brought out to her as we're dating, and then I fall in love with the good things of the idea of, I make an image up in my mind of who she is that's really not completely her. And I fall in love with that image. So when we get married, we look at each other and we get to know each other and get to know the bad parts. And so we're not in love with the bad parts. We made this image up in our mind where we're in love with the good parts. And so it causes problems in marriage because we're not really truly in love with that person. We're in love with their good things. Or we're in love with an image in our mind. Not a good thing. Let me tell you, so if you're dating, I just warn you, don't let that happen. And there's a reason I'm talking about this. See, last week I talked about falling in love with God, but the same thing happens to people with their relationship with God. They don't really fall in love with God. They fall in love with an image that they have in their mind about God. And it's not a good thing at all. So anyway, in a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about it, after this intro. So hang on.
Sweet! We're watching the Wizive show.
See, a lot of people in Christianity, they fall in love with this picture and image of what they believe God is, like I just mentioned before here. But what they're actually falling in love with and what they're serving isn't actually God. So in reality, they're making an idol in their mind and serving this idol and saying, yeah, that's my God. That's who my God is. And that's why a lot of people, they say, yeah, they believe in God and He's a loving God and He's all this and all that, but they don't really know who God really is. Their God that they are believing in isn't really the true God. They're believing in a false reality that they made up in their mind. A lot of people do that because they want God to confine to what they want out of life, what they want out of a God. Like, I want my God to, let's see, what do I want my God to be? I want Him to be fun and loving and never do anything bad to me. I mean, just completely give me everything I want. That's who I want my God to be. That's not going to work. You gotta have a direct understanding of who God actually is, so that you can actually fall in love with the true God, and so that you're not worshiping an idol of who God is. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense here. If I'm not, let me know in the comment section below, or contact me on wizife.com, whatever you want to do here. But anyway, I really want to talk to you about this book, or this is a study guide version of the book, but there's an actual book out here that's called God as He Longs for You to See Him. It's by Chip Ingram. I hope you can see this here on the video. I'm not sure how I positioned this video camera here, so can you see that? Good. Okay. I want to talk about, the great thing about this book, we had a small group, men's group that went through it, and I think I mentioned that in other videos, but the point is, we went through it and we learned about the attributes of God, who God really is. And the reason it's so important, well, let me just read a thing here, if I can find it, that A.W. Tozer says. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a great guy too. Okay, here's what it says. What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. Did you get that? The most important thing about it is what we think about God, because that's going to depend on if we're really loving God, if we actually have a right concept of God so that we can fall in love with the ultimate creator, the God. So, anyway, here's what it goes. For this reason, the gravest question before the church is always God himself, and the most portentous fact about any man is not what he at any given time may say or do, but what he in his deep heart conceives God to be like. See, all that matters is to know, if you really want to fall in love with God and do what I talked about in the last episode, in the last video that I made, then you're going to have a right view of God. Now, I completely recommend this book. I'll probably put a link below this video or something so you can go get the book, because it's totally recommended, and it will help you get that mindset of God, who God really is, so you can fall in love with that instead of a false reality and end up worshiping an idol, because that's not good. Now, there's a couple ways to know if you really love God, if you really know who God is. And see, in this video, and he talks about having 20/20 in this book. Did I say video? I think it's a video. So in this book, get it right, book, he talks about having 20/20 vision, which, in case you don't know, is a good, best eyesight you can have, pretty much. Mine is like 20/60. My right eye is really bad. My left eye is really good. So anyway, here he has a couple things that he has a vision test to see how well we actually love God, or how much we know God. And the first thing is, those who know God have great energy for God. Then there's an outline where then you can have, then you have to check, how, from 1 to 10, how great an energy do you have for God? Think about it. Then number 2 is, those who know God have great thoughts of God. So how great are your thoughts for God, from 1 to 10? It might be good for you to write this down, actually. You might have to redo this video and, write it down as we go here. Number 3, those who know God show great boldness for God. That's a big one. Look at Paul, for example, how much boldness he had for God. The things that he did was incredible because he was bold. He was really, really bold for God. And again, from 1 to 10, how great is your boldness for God? Now, we all want it to be a 10, naturally. But, we got to work toward it. Now, number 4, those who know God have great contentment in God. So how great is your contentment in God? 1 through 10. From 1 to 10, just pick out what you think it may be. Now, see, the Bible talks about, I'm not sure where it is, to be honest with you. I should look it up, but I didn't. Anyway, it talks about how if you seek the Lord if you really, really seek God, then you will find Him. And I just really kind of had a revelation last night about that. I was like, you know what? That is so true. If we see, a lot of times, a lot of people don't really know God, but if they truly, truly, truly seek after God, they will find Him. They will find who He really is. So you're going to have to dedicate yourself to seek after God, to know who He really is, so that you can have that correct concept of Him. So it's not that image in your mind isn't false reality, and it's really true, and so that you fall in love with the true God. Now, this book goes through the 7 different attributes of God. It talks about the goodness of God, the sovereignty of God, the holiness of God, the wisdom of God, the justice of God, the love of God, the faithfulness of God. And it's, as I said, it's really, really good. I totally recommend it. Check it out. I will have a link somewhere on this page probably. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention here, if I can find it. Let's see. Okay, another thing. Yeah, here it is here. God reveals Himself through 3 ways that He kind of reveals Himself: through His nature, through His creation. Just look at His creation and see the different things that He made, and you'll see some attributes of God, how good He is, and how He created everything for you. It's pretty amazing. Then His Word. So if you dig into the Word of God, you'll begin to see some of who God is. You'll see there's a lot of different things how powerful God is. That's a big thing that I always notice when I read the Bible. Talks about David and all the things that David did and how powerful God was in that. And when David went to God, that's when he had victory. So God wants you to come to him. That's another, that's the attributes of God, Then another way God reveals himself is through Jesus. If you study how Jesus acted and what he did and all the different miracles and whatever, you'll see tremendous power. You'll see the love that he had, the compassion that he had on people, and you'll see all that. You'll see some of the attributes of God. So anyway, dig into the Word of God, get to know his nature. Sometimes I think it'd be good for me to sometimes go more out into nature and just simply, we were camping the other Saturday night? I think it was Saturday night. Yes, it was Saturday night. Anyway, we were camping. We had a great time and just sitting there around a fire, and we talked about some different things as far as, reading the Bible, some things that we had read about and stuff, but just to see God's nature, to be out in God's nature for a little bit, and to see all the things that he created, the trees, just how marvelous, how incredibly smart God was, how wise he was, and how everything works together. It's incredible. And another thing I want to point out before I close this video is a simple thing that one of the main problems that people have with God is that they view God as their father. Let me rephrase it. They view God as their earthly father. So what you think of your earthly father, a lot of times that's what you think about God. And one thing we need to realize is we will never understand the fullness of God. It says so in the Bible. We will never understand the fullness of God, so we will never really comprehend exactly, how can I say this? We won't really ever understand him because he doesn't compare to who we know as a father on earth. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. The point is that we can't, just by looking on things that we know about on earth here, we will never really see the fullness of God. We won't ever be able to completely understand it because he is so far above, so much bigger, we can't really fathom it. That's who God is. Anyway, next couple weeks I'll probably, maybe, depends where God leads me, might share some more about different attributes of God, maybe about God's love or something like that. We'll see once. And again, go check out this book. I'll have a link somewhere. And just below this video in the comment section, write down your answer to, I have a question here I wanted to. Okay. What are your best practices that have helped you know God better? In the last couple of years, what has been kind of your best practices, things that you've done that have helped you to know God? Was it prayer? Was it reading the Word? What was it? Let me know. Talk to you later.
Okay guys, this is WizIve goal number 38, and that is to get to truly, truly, truly know God, because that's a very, very important thing, as we just mentioned about. Anyway, verse that goes along with that is Isaiah 40:28. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. Now the reason I picked that verse is because his understanding no one will fathom. We won't fathom how much everything about God, because he's so big, he's so immense. We just can't really comprehend it because we try to, as I mentioned before, we try to compare with what we know down here on earth about our Father, and that doesn't work. So anyway, know that God is bigger than anything, and get to truly know him.
This is the part of the show that you've been waiting for. It's the biblical joke of the week. And as usual, probably a little bit of fun and a little bit lame.
I got this biblical joke online because, again, nobody submitted one, so please submit your joke. Here's how it goes. Johnny was asked by his mother what he had learned in Sunday school. Well, Mom, our teacher told us how God sent Moses behind enemy lines on a rescue mission to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. When he got to the Red Sea, he had his engineers build a pontoon bridge, and all the people walked across safely. Then he used his walkie-talkie to radio headquarters for reinforcements. They sent bombers to blow up the bridge and save the Israelites. Now, Johnny, is that really what your teacher taught you? His mother asked. Well, no, Mom, but if I told you the way the teacher did, you'd never believe it. I need you to submit your biblical joke so that I can have it on the show. Now, how to do that? Well, you can either go to wizive.com and contact me, or you can go to YouTube and create a video response.
This has been the Wizive Show. Again, my name is, as always, is Justin Miller. And hey, I just want to help you get to know God better. I want to help you build your relationship. So let me know how I can do that. Anyway, I'm out. Coming for to carry me home. Swing along, sweet chariot. Coming for to carry me home, to carry